pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you all for coming out today. In front of you, you have our reference to the minutes of the January 9th, 2024 meeting. Should be on pages 1 through 3. Do I have any additions, corrections, or comments?
Motion approved minutes. Second.
Motion by Mr. Copel, second by Mr. Hutton. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So we'll go on to public comment agenda. I've got nobody signed up. Is there anybody here who wants to make a public comment? Just ask anybody who wants to make a public comment. If not, then that section is closed. We'll go on to planning 3.1. Mr. Weber. This is the Northwest Indiana 2050 plus roads presentation. This is just informational, and we've been going through each one of the chapters of the Northwest Indiana plus plan.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
As we've been making these rounds with the chapters of NWI 2050 plus, which you all adopted back in July of last year. It's gone by so fast. But here we are in chapter 6 to talk about roads today. So the roads chapter kind of takes the structure of going through each of the visions. 4 of these are from NWI 2050, the first 4, connected, united, renewed, vibrant. And then NWI 2050 plus adds 2 other vision areas, equitable and safe. And if you'll notice, the acronym is PURGE, just like our lakeshore. The roads chapter also has goals that state what achieving each vision would look like and objectives that represent actions or strategies toward achieving each goal. Now, I will mention when it comes to the roads chapter, a lot of this is stuff that isn't so new to us per se. It's kind of in the bread and butter of what we've been doing at NERPC for a long time, but it's worth restating what we're doing and also putting it in the framework of our NWA 2015 and NWA 2050 plus vision areas here. So I'll organize this presentation by vision area. So we'll start with connected, and as this is from the critical paths chart that used to be hanging in this room for years. As you can see, it comes straight from that. The vision statement reads, Northwest Indiana's people have accessible, safe, and equal opportunities for working, playing, living, and learning. And also you could find on this chart the roads chapter goal, which states that complete roadway, bicycle, sidewalk, and transit networks across municipal and county lines to enhance safe and efficient access to opportunities for all. So now what are some of the objectives that speak to this goal? Well, the first objective is the roadway network in Northwest Indiana adequately covers the region and affords roadway users sufficient mobility and accessibility. So here's a map of functional classification. This is a federal requirement that we maintain a map of functional classification of our roadways in our region. This determines federal eligibility for you all's federal aid highway projects. And as you can see from here, there are a lot of interstates and arterials in our region. So clearly there's good mobility expressed by this system. But then the question of accessibility is a little less clear. We have to dive in a little bit more and see what we see. So the next objective that speaks more to the idea of accessibility is the roadway network in Northwest Indiana balances opportunities for working, playing, living, and learning in the region. So here's a graphic, a chart of the average trip duration in minutes for various purposes. This was from the 2007 to 2008 household travel survey compared with the 2018 household travel survey, which is the most recent household travel survey that we've commissioned in our region. And what's concerning about here is that the time for the average home-based work trip for commuters in our region actually increased from 25.6 minutes to 28 minutes. The other home-based trips actually improved somewhat in amount of time. Home-based shopping went from 15.3 to 14.7, and home-based other went from 19.5 minutes to 17.4 minutes. But it is concerning that the work trips increased in duration. That indicates that we might have an issue with accessibility of commuters not getting to the destinations that they need to get to unless we intervene in strategic ways. So the third objective that the roadways chapter that speaks to the goal of connected is the roadway network extent in Northwest Indiana is not itself a major contributor to congestion. So when I say that, I mean that the roadway network itself is not missing gaps or it has certain characteristics that itself causes congestion. So in 2016, NERC adopted the Regional Corridor Study, which actually looked at 22 segments in our region that if they were completed would either greatly relieve congestion or at least increase mobility in our region. So we've categorized these 22 corridors in areas of high priority, medium priority, low priority, and then not significant. And as we look at what's remarkable, as we look at the progress since 2016 of these 22 corridors, we can see that a lot of them already appear in some of our planning documents. For example, in the last NWI 2050 plan, as well as our fiscal years 2022 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program. So it's great to see that many segments have progressed in implementation, but there are still many that are not implemented so far. So we just want to always keep these in mind, and as we look forward to future funding opportunities, we're not looking to build many new roads because they cost a lot, but it's good to kind of organize the new roadway segments that might fit into this framework of regional corridor studies. The next objective that we're looking at that supports the connected goal is that the roadway network in Northwest Indiana fosters connections between communities without imposing barriers. So here's a map of limited access highways. And as you can see, limited access highways bisect many of our urban core communities in our region. Here, you can see the interstates as well as Klein Avenue, which are the main limited access highways in our region here, and parts of State Road 49. However, not only do these limited access highways impose barriers, but they also require a lot of interchanges and ramps that are required to access them. And these consume a lot of land on top of the barriers that the facilities themselves impose. And also they kind of bring down that high-speed merging and exiting traffic onto the local street network. So this is a concern for our local communities as well. So we need to be proactive in terms of what we're looking to do from a land use perspective in keeping these areas very strategically developed in terms of not imposing friction around these ramp areas as well. And also to try to kind of construct pathways to connect them better. So our next vision area in the roadways chapter is United. And this also comes from NWI 2050, and the vision reads, Northwest Indiana's diversity is celebrated, and we work together as a community across racial, ethnic, political, and cultural lines for the mutual benefit of the region. And the goal is also found in this chart as well, and that is to prioritize transformative investments to elevate the position of the region and to attract the diversity of residents and high-quality economic opportunities. So the first objective in support of the United goal is that Northwest Indiana's residents are able to access jobs both within and outside the region, and Northwest Indiana's jobs attract talent from both within and outside the region. So this is a graphic of the 2019 commute pattern, so pre-pandemic. And as we can see, Illinois does attract a significant portion of jobs from, especially from Lake County, but in our region in general. And so it's important to kind of foster those connections with Illinois as well. And also, if we look at the commute mode share of Northwest Indiana workers, we can see that the vast majority of our commuters drive alone, and actually roadway using modes account for well over 90% of commute trips. So when you combine the drive alone with the carpool percentage, and a good percentage of the transit as well is on bus. So a lot of these users are using our roadway network every single day. So it's important that we take care of our roads. The second objective in support of the United goal is that leaders deploy travel demand management strategies and transformative systems management and operations, or TISMO, investments in the region. So our congestion management process, which this body adopted in August of 2020, called MOVE NWI, contains a toolbox of several travel demand management strategies. So I'm not going to read these in detail, but I'll just kind of read what they are. But increased transit, increased non-motorized use, alternative flexible work hours, telecommuting, ride sharing, carpooling, school pooling, van pooling, high occupancy vehicle lanes, and congestion pricing, signal priority and preemption and priority, signal coordination, reduced or variable speed limits, crash reduction focus at specific sites, increased operational data sharing, intelligent transportation systems, and freight intermodal connections are among the travel demand management strategies that are part of that toolbox. In addition to these travel demand management strategies, Move NWI also contains several TSMO strategies, including tolling, HOT managed lanes, reversible lanes, part-time shoulder use, and ramp metering. That right column sounds a lot like the I-8094 Flex Road project that's ongoing that INDOT just received a $127 million mega award in December. So we're going to be hearing a lot more about that in the coming years. So I'm not saying that we should be focusing on every single one of these strategies, but it behooves us as leaders, if we're going to try to alleviate congestion, to at least be tuning into these possible strategies as tools in the toolbox that can, any amount of them could help us alleviate the problem of congestion as we move forward. And then the next vision area I'm going to talk about that the roads chapter deals with is Renewed. Renewed also comes from the NWI 2050 Critical Paths framework. And the vision reads, Northwest Indiana's urban and rural centers are places people want to come to and live in, and our environment is safe and healthy. And the goal from the roadway chapter that supports this vision is improve roadway, bicycle, sidewalk, and transit networks to revitalize existing urban and rural centers and enhance equity. So the first objective that supports the Renewed vision is leaders prioritize maintaining roadway and highway pavements in satisfactory condition in our region. And as we can see, this is a map of pavement condition in our region. The pavement quality tends to be poorer in urban areas than in rural areas. But yet, a good news story about this is that our region has been awarded $125 million collectively through the Community Crossings Matching Grant programs as of 2022. We know that number is even higher now, and it's only going to go up as the next application window is just about to close. So this is definitely good news for our region in terms of that we are making progress, even though we can see we have a lot more progress to make, especially in our urban areas and maintaining our pavements. The next objective is that supports Renewed is leaders prioritize maintaining bridges in a state of good repair in our region. And as this is a map of road bridge condition shows, most bridges are in good repair condition, but the bridges in poor condition do tend to be on the non-INDOT roads. So that is concerning that perhaps we're not tapping into the funding sources for rehabilitating and replacing these bridges as well as we could in our region. So we just need to keep an eye on that. These tend to be expensive projects as well. The next vision area in the roadways chapter that I'll talk about is Vibrant. And the Vibrant vision reads, and this is also from NWA 2050, is that Northwest Indiana's economy is thriving, our people are well educated, growth is planned, and natural and agricultural areas are valued and protected. The goal that supports the Vibrant vision area is adopt technological innovation that enhances the safe and fluid movement of people and goods to enable a flourishing economy. The first objective in support of this vision is the Northwest Indiana region is prepared to transition to electric vehicles by ensuring that residents have the means to access EVs and that EV charging infrastructure is adequately and equitably distributed across the region. So here's a table of the EV registrations in the state of Indiana as a whole as a percentage of total registrations. At the time of producing this plan, we didn't have great data on the local level from all of our Bureau of Motor Vehicle branches in our counties. But as you can see, from 2016 to 2021, the fraction of EVs was very minuscule. However, it is starting to grow quite rapidly if we look at the later years and the pace of growth. So it's important that we consider how EVs are going to reshape our landscape, not only from the standpoint of providing the infrastructure and charging, but also thinking about what ramifications the increase in EVs will have, and for example, our pavement qualities, is there kind of a fundamentally different vehicle weight and drive train as well. So. And looking at also a map of the EV charging station locations, both these are level 2 and DC fast charging, the existing locations as well as future locations. I'm sure this map will be updated all the time, and in fact it's probably already out of date, but this is the map that appeared back when the plan was released for public comment last April. And as we can see, the investment in charging stations in northern Lake County has not kept pace with the rest of the region. So this is an area of concern as well when we look at this map. The next objective in support of the Vibrant vision is that Northwest Indiana residents and freight carriers can expect to travel at reliable and safe speeds on the region's roadway network. So here's a map using the probe data that we have called the National Performance Measure Research Data Set, which uses probes from cell phones as well as in-vehicle GPS devices. And this shows the speeds, the 85th percentile speeds on the roadways that we have data for. And then the important thing here is to compare this map to this next map, which is the median speed. And if we look at the difference, there isn't a major difference between the 85th percentile speed and the median speeds, which indicates that overall speeds on our region's road network is pretty reliable, with minor exceptions on US 30, US 41, and US 6, which tend to have more unreliable speeds. As we can imagine, there's more traffic and more signal friction as well on these facilities. And then the next objective in support of the vibrant vision area is that leaders effectively manage congestion on the region's roadway network to ensure that people and goods move fluidly in order to sustain a flourishing economy. This is looking at level of service on the roadway network in 2019. So this was the base year of our NWI 2050 plus. And it's important to compare this map to this next map, which is showing what our travel demand model shows the level of service to be in the horizon year of our plan of 2050. I know it's a little hard to see the nuances in the colors here, but one of the main takeaways is that the level of service is overall pretty similar between 2019 and 2050 in terms of when you boil it down to these letter grades A through F. But the I-94 corridor in Porter County actually stands out as expected to get more congested without thinking about how we can intervene in terms of the land use growth that we're seeing in this part of the region, as well as not keeping pace with perhaps some of the roadway investments that we're seeing in other parts of the region. And then finally, I'll talk about two vision areas in the roadways chapter that did not come from NWI 2050, but are new to NWI 2050 plus. The first one is equitable. And the vision statement that was crafted as part of this plan for equitable is to seek fairness and access to resources and opportunities to meet the needs of all community members. And the roads chapter goal that speaks to this vision area is seek to distribute access to the region's roadway network equitably and justly, as well as ensure that leaders invest in improvements to roadways equitably and justly. So this is kind of where we fit the federal requirement of environmental justice and Justice 40 into our planning framework. We do it here in the roadways chapter. So I'm not going to go through that entire framework, but I'm going to highlight a couple areas. So the first objective that speaks to the equitable vision is that leaders seek to ensure that Northwest Indiana region households have more equal access to vehicles. Here's a map showing the block groups from the census data that where you see a lot of vehicle or a higher concentration than the regional average of households that do not have access to at least one vehicle. And as you can see, the patterns that stand out are that mainly in northern Lake County, especially north of I-8094, but in general, northern Lake County stands out as having some of these areas, as well as certain pockets of the city of Portage, city of Valparaiso, and city of Michigan City, and city of LaPorte as well. But in general, there's definitely a clustering in northern Lake County of these households that do not have access to at least one vehicle. This is the second objective in support of equitable that the roads chapter highlights is that leaders invest in projects and other improvements to the roadway network equitably and justly, not unduly benefiting or burdening certain communities at the expenses of others. And so this is showing the total analysis of the environmental justice areas. One of those layers was the no vehicle access, which I showed in the last slide, but we also layered on top of that other factors such as areas that have a higher concentration than the region in terms of lower household income, poverty, as well as minority status and seniors, limited English proficiency, and veteran as well. So when we layer on all these layers, we can see these are the census block groups that are areas that have higher than the regional average in a majority of those layers that I just spoke of. And these areas do also tend to be clustered in central and northern Lake County. As you can see, the dark purple is significant environmental justice areas, and the hashed lighter purple is the moderate environmental justice areas. And then not only that, but we also did an analysis of where the fiscally constrained projects from our transportation improvement program and our plan were overlaid on these environmental justice areas. And as we can see, most projects are in the EJ areas, with the highest density being in northern Lake County. However, clearly there's still room to improve, and always consider where we're able to fund projects that can benefit these areas that are more burdened by environmental justice. Finally, the last vision area that I'll speak to in the roads chapter is safe, and this is also new from NWI 2050 Plus. It didn't appear in NWI 2050. And the vision statement reads, reduce and mitigate roadway safety and security risks. The goal that speaks to the safe vision in the roads chapter is to ensure that the region's roadways operate as safely as possible, with the guiding principle that any fatality on the roads or highways is one too many. And this comes from the Vision Zero principle as well. So the first objective that I'll talk about that supports the safe vision is leaders seek to reduce crashes on the region's roadways. Here's a heat map from the crash data from 2015 to 2019 from the ARES database. Keep in mind that we have more recently been, we have access to 2018 to 2022 crash data, so we'll see more maps and analysis about that shortly. But what we had available to us at the time we were developing this NWI 2050 Plus plan is what we have in front of us here. And this heat map shows that, unsurprisingly, crashes tend to cluster in areas with more traffic and a denser road network. These are factors that you would expect, essentially. But also, the next objective is that leaders seek to reduce injuries on the region's roadways. And so injuries tend to cluster in northwest Lake County and generally on roads with higher speeds and busier intersections. We're not only talking about just more traffic and a denser roadway network, but you're much more likely to get injured in a crash when the crash involves higher speed travel, as well as near intersections where there are a lot of movements. And then finally, the last objective that speaks to the visionary of safe is that leaders seek to eliminate fatalities on the region roadways. And so this heat map shows that fatalities tend to cluster near busy interchanges and intersections, as well as near roadway curves and oblique intersection angles. So these are kind of factors that stand out from the heat map analysis here. We'll continue to update this with the more recent 2018 to 2022 data. We'll also seek to access more safety funding so that, because we know that that's the most attractive funding for you all, and we'll try to do so in a more strategic way. And we look forward to working with communities that have received the Safe Streets and Roads for All funds as well, and that's exciting news that I want to highlight that's not shown here, but that's very exciting that we have many of our communities that have already accessed funds to complete a safety action plan. And we're going to start doing more road safety audits as well as we get funding for that. So are there any questions that come from my presentation on the roads chapter?
Any comments or questions?
It's a really good presentation.
Very comprehensive, thank you, Mr. Weber. And I don't need to remind you, but I will. The staff is available to help all of you. They've done an outstanding job in the past and in the future with a lot of these new funding opportunities that we have. So having said that, does anybody want to sign up to? Do you have anything else, Scott?
This item.
Okay. Since we have an interlude to help out our note taker, I'd like to do self-introductions. I'll begin saying I'm Kevin Dreisky, Porter County Surveyor, and I'm the chair of this awesome committee.
Mitch Barlow, NERC staff.
Laura Baum, NERC staff.
David Ryan, during public transit.
Dean Button and City.
Lisa Schrader, NDOT Newport District Office.
Martin Bobchick, Highway Engineer, Porter County.
Mike Chapin, Porter County. Topple Union Township in Porter County.
Ryan Lissy, Director of the
Max Rayner, About the Resident City Engineer.
Captain Police, NERC staff.
Scott Pruitt, First Group Engineer.
Please, Paul. Paul's from Porter County.
Yeah.
Steve King, County Maryville. Jake Damrell, Butler, Fairman, Cypher. Charles Bransky, Emergency Staff.
Alex Wesker, Public Fairman and Cypher.
Scott Weber, NERC staff.
Grace Bender, NERC staff.
Terry Ruffin, Perry.
Thank you so much for being here. We'll begin with Charles Bransky next. with the programming. First, you'll give a report of the public comment for the Transportation Improvement Program Amendment 2401.
Good morning, everybody. If you turn to page 4, we have the public comment report for Amendment 24-01. This would be for Resolution 24-03, Amendment 24-01. During the public comment period, which ended on February 2nd, there were no comments from the public. We did get one comment from the ICG, one technical comment from Federal Highway. It had 4 different parts to it. Part number 1 asked about the road construction projects, namely a road construction project in East Chicago, and whether or not it had any added capacity components. That's actually going to be a reconstruction with the road diet, so therefore there's going to be no added capacity on that one. The second one concerned the Borman project, the 8094 Flex Road that NDOT is doing. Wanted to know if the project costs were accurate. And I responded that we were still waiting for some information from the NDOT project manager. I did speak with the NDOT project manager, and that is a very fluid situation right now. It's still very preliminary in their developing of the project. They believe there's going to be a few more DES numbers in that contract. And the price, or the cost of that project will go up. So, but as of right now, it's still developing, and the first step is to start getting the projects and the different DES numbers into NERC's TIP. The third comment was about the bridge replacement projects, and similar to the first comment, is there any added capacity projects, components? Speaking with NDOT had originally had three bridge replacement projects. Those are actually bridge rehabs. So they are not added capacity. And the other 2 for the counties are not, they are not adding capacity. The last comment from Federal Highway concerned for the Willow Creek Road Phase 2, if that is included in the NEPA study. And the NEPA study goes from 700 North here in Portage all the way down to US 30. So Phase 2, obviously, that's going to be 4 or 5 different phases. So obviously Phase 2 is within those limits. That was on page 4 and 5. Moving into the amendment, it's rather large. Of course, we haven't been able to do an amendment since July last year. So we've been kind of chomping at the bit to get our amendments going. Actually getting our TIP approved, and so we can get our amendments approved. There's a summary on page 6 of all of the projects. There are 52 projects in this amendment. NDOT has 10 new projects. 8 of them are bridge rehabs. 1 is a pavement rehab, and 1 is a planning project. There's 16 projects with significant increases of funding. Includes intersection improvement, bridge replacement, 1 bridge rehab, 9 bridge rehabs, 3 pavement rehabs, 1 small structure replacement, and 1 sign replacement. There were 2 projects with added phases. That's a pavement rehab and a small structure replacement. And 3 non-exempt projects with changes. Non-exempt projects, especially during this period, any changes to the non-exempt projects for air quality need to go through as an amendment. And there are 2 intersection improvements and 1 intelligent ITS project, which is the 8094 Flex Road, the mega project that Scott spoke about briefly. For the local projects, there's 11 new projects for the municipality of East Chicago, Hammond, Hobart, LaPorte, Maryville, 2 from Maryville, Michigan City, and the counties of LaPorte and Porter and Nipissing. That includes 2 intersection improvements, 1 pavement rehab, 3 planning, 1 bridge replacement, 1 new bridge, and 3 other type projects. These are projects we need to get going as quickly as possible to get the funding going. 4 substantial changes in funding for projects in Chesterton, Michigan City, Sherrill, and Porter County. That includes an ITS. That's the EVP project that Chesterton is running. 1 trail, 1 planning, 1 new roadway expansion project. There's 5 projects with added phases, 2 of them in Gary, 1 in Michigan City, Valparaiso, and Lake County. And that includes intersection improvements, 1 pavement rehab, 1 bridge replacement, and 1 complete streets. And then lastly, 1 project is being eliminated by the city of Gary. And that's what is in the amendment. And I believe those amendments are online. But the resolution is in the packet.
Yes, I'm looking at it online as we speak. I see the introduction of the term for the board and the mega project, which
It's called, we're calling it mega, but that was a mega fund. That's what Federal Highway, or I should probably say Office of the Secretary of Transportation, that's the discretionary grant that they were awarded, that's what it's coming under, it's called mega. So, but the actual project is 8094 Flex Road.
I appreciate you explaining it because it's a term that has more meaning than what we think.
And we'll be hearing a lot more about it late in the future.
And it's an opportunity because, especially for the larger, overwhelming projects. Does anybody here have any questions or comments?
I have a couple questions. Charles, are we still on schedule for the TIP approval? Okay, well, I guess we'll have to talk offline.
I'm saying yes, but
Okay.
my fingers are crossed
Okay.
and behind my back.
Okay. And your toes, right?
Yep.
We got the board recommendation today and we meet the 15th.
So the plan is the air quality determination, which is next. And so I'm stealing Scott's thunder. That should be approved on March 19th. Scott will talk more about that. But once that gets approved, we've been told, so this is all verbal. We've been told by Federal Highway, US DOT, that everything is going to be signed and sitting on their desk. And once the air quality determination gets approved, then we can get our long-range transportation plan approved. Then we can get our TIP approved, and then we can get our amendment approved. And it is our understanding with NDOT and Federal Highway that everything is going to be kind of sitting on the desk, waiting for that magical hour to turn 12 o'clock midnight on March 19th, and then everybody's going to sign everything and send it to us. So, now, for projects, there is a 3-day public comment period at NDOT for the STIP. So that means on the 19th, I'm not sure if they're going to try to run that beforehand so that we get everything on the 19th. However, I think the 19th is a Saturday, so it may not really matter. But so it may be the 19th or maybe the 22nd that everything is green lighted and our pedal is, we're hitting that pedal to the metal.
So are there any more questions for Charles?
Charles, I just have one more, sorry.
Fine.
Where you mentioned fiscal years 24 through 28 and beyond,
Yes,
can you clarify what that means? Because we do have projects beyond that, and I don't know if we're supposed to be providing them.
no, the reason I said 2028 and beyond is because the Cherville project and the Porter County projects are, those are the major expansion projects that we have, Kennedy Avenue and the Willow Creek Road. Those are both delve into projects that may be going deep into 2030s. So,
Thank you.
Thank you for the good questions. And to keep us on schedule, do I have a motion for approving the TIP 2024-2028 amendment 2401?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Wright made the motion and seconded by Mr. Button. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So moved.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move back to Mr. Weber. Public comment report on the adoption of air quality conformity determination for NWI 2050 plus and for the fiscal year 2024-2028 TIP. And call that the resolution 2402, the adoption of air quality determination.
So the first part of what you mentioned, public comment report, isn't all that exciting. You'll find that on page 10. Not the resolution itself, but the air quality conformity determination for NWI 2050 plus and the 2024 to 2028 transportation improvement program went out for a 30-day public comment period from January 5th through February 4th. We received no comments. So that said, that there's no action on the public comment report, but you can see a record of that on page 10. I will now talk about the air quality conformity determination report itself. So the memo on pages 11 to 12 of your agenda packet talks about the air quality conformity determination report in resolution 24-02. So the recommendation for this committee is that we receive a recommendation to adopt resolution 24-02 contingent upon the Environmental Protection Agency not receiving any adverse comments to the 2008 ozone state implementation plan amendment. The reason why that is stated is that basically the Environmental Protection Agency published a Federal Register notice that Charles briefly alluded to that will allow us to make this conformity determination. But in the Federal Register notice, they're open for receiving comments through February 20th, 2024. That is actually not only after the date of this meeting, but also the date of our executive board meeting, which is next on February 15th. So any motion that this committee makes, it's asked to consider that the motion be contingent upon the Environmental Protection Agency not receiving any adverse comments through February 20th. That said, the reason why this resolution 24-02 is required is that NERC, as you might know, is in a non-attainment area for ozone. So that means that we cannot federally approve any plan. We cannot get our NWI 2050 plus plan or our 2024 to 2028 transportation improvement program approved unless we show that the regionally significant projects that are being funded in these plans does not cause the basically on-road mobile source emissions of ozone to exceed the levels in the motor vehicle emissions budgets in the state implementation plan. And what happens is that, so we perform travel demand modeling, we show how all our projects, the emissions that are going to be caused by all these projects are at or below budgets. However, there was an issue early on that showed that because the budgets were actually made in an era before we had access to the latest and greatest tools for our emissions analysis, those budget levels were set too low. So we actually requested the IDEM, the Environmental the Indiana Department of Environmental Management to come up with new budgets for us that would show that we could meet those budgets. And so the EPA luckily took on those new budgets and amended the 2008 ozone state implementation plan. But that process is still ongoing, as I mentioned. There's a comment period that lasts through February 20th, and the effective date isn't until March 19th. That's what Charles was talking about. However, the good news is that we can show, as you can see on the table on page 12 of the memo, that the emissions for the ozone precursors of NOx, which is nitrous oxides, and VOC, volatile organic compounds, are at or below the budgets in the amended state implementation plan for all the required years from 2011 and 2017, which are actually backcasted years, 2019, which is the base year, and then basically the interim years of 2020, 2025, 2030, 2035, 2040, and then also our horizon year of 2050. So because that we were able to demonstrate that our projected ozone precursor emissions of NOx and VOC were at or below the budgets in the amended state implementation plan, that we are showing that we can demonstrate conformity for our end of area 2050 plus and fiscal year 2024 to 2028 transportation improvement program. This process was overseen by our interagency consultation group, which is comprised not only of NERC and INDOT, as well as Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, and the US EPA. So, if there are any questions, I know that was a lot, but that's what the resolution 24-02 is about. But we ask that any recommendations this committee makes be contingent upon EPA not receiving any adverse comments through February 20th.
To date, has the staff received any negative comments?
No, we have not today.
Are there any other questions, comments? If not, could I have a recommendation?
Move to adopt resolution 24-02, subject to contingency.
Contingent on EPA's comments?
Yes.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Scott.
I think we'll keep on schedule. Yes. Thank you, Charles and Scott. Next, we'll have topical committee reports from the NERC staff, starting with Randy. Yes.
The Pedal Paddle Committee met a week ago, and we had a presentation from the consultants working on the old Plank Road Trail study from Chicago Heights and Schererville, and they produced their findings to date and their recommended alternative route for the trail. We are having an open house for this project in the Schererville, actually the St. John Community Center, which is located on US 30, right there on the Dyer-Schererville line. And that'll be this Thursday, 5:30 to 7 p.m. And so if you wish to come out to share your thoughts, look at some nice pictures and graphics of where this trail may end up, feel free. I believe we actually voted on one of the trails today to move ahead with the section in Schererville and Dyer from NC Greenway to Central Park that is now in KIP. So we're moving along, and I know in Illinois there's a lot of energy to get it from Chicago Heights to the state line. So things are moving on that project.
Any questions for Mitch? Guess not. Anybody else from NERC staff have a report today? Seeing none, we'll move on to Drive Clean Indiana. He's got a whole page of stuff.
All right, good morning, everyone. This is just a reminder that the Climate Pollution Reduction Grants program is being taken in by IDEM, and this is a great opportunity for up to 100% funding for related projects that they have identified. Please feel free to reach out to Drive Clean Indiana if you have any questions, but the comments are due by February 15th, so you need to get those in right away. There's going to be a EPA Clean Ports program. This is a $3 billion project of funding opportunities for zero emission and equipment throughout port programs. And it's not just Burns Harbor. Categorically, all the steel mills and all the communities that are represented as a result of these different operations. There are opportunities to fund different planning and projects that will be coming out this month and then due in May. EPA Clean School Bus Rebate Program. This funding program is due on February 14th. And then the final round of VW settlement funding, that is going to be coming out here in April and May. And we were awarded the Electric Vehicle Charger Reliability and Accessibility Accelerator, just basically upgrading and replacing old charging stations across Indiana. And then we applied with INDOT and IDEM and Riverseas as a project sponsor. This is $778,000 for 55 ports across Indiana. The GO EVIN DC fast charging program have been installed. They are not currently commissioned, which means good news for you because you get free charging at the different locations at the Meyer Maryville, South Shore Visitor Center, all the Portage, along the toll road, Meyer and Valparaiso. And this is just a reminder that the Northwest Indiana Partners for Clean Air scholarship applications are due on April 30th. Any questions? Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. In your packet, you have all the future meeting days, including the regional plan commission's executive board meeting will be February 15th. They'll hear what you recommended today. Remember, T-Rock is happening on February 20th for Lincoln Porter County at 9 a.m. and T-Rock for LaPorte County will be February 20th at 1 o'clock. Our next meeting will be March 5th in this room at 10 o'clock.
As a staff, I would like to remind everyone in this room that we would appreciate any updates to projects in your community, anything that you have on your docket that you need maybe the public to look at, or any projects that you want to brag about. We're more than happy to put those on our social media feed. So please keep that in mind.
Okay. And Charles.
This is kind of developing, just to let everybody know that, and we've been talking about different dates, but on February 29th, we are going to have a new administration workshop here at 8:30 in the morning. I'm going to buy donuts, the real donuts, not the ones that I put on my back screen. Those of you that hit the quarterly meetings, not the virtual donuts, but I'm going to bring in donuts. So I'll be at 8:30 for a new administration. It's called new administration, but I'm inviting everybody to come. We're going to talk about a little bit about some of the different services that NERC has that we can offer to different personnel. But mainly we're going to talk about the federal aid process and what it means when you put in a project, how it all develops from the NOFA all the way to getting into construction. This is the first time we've ever done this, so I may trip over my feet, and I'm kind of hoping that if there's some veterans in the audience that they can correct me or help me explain things. And by all means, if you have a new mayor, if you have a new city engineer, bring them and you can help explain to them how the federal aid process works, especially with federal funds. I believe INDOT, Brianne's going to be here. I believe. Again, that's going to be February 29th at 8:30. So we've been talking about some different dates, and we were trying to do it on the 20th, but the 20th wasn't going to work, and then the 26th or 27th, 26th in the works, so we're on the 29th.
I
So,
wasn't to pressure you, but I'm glad that you arrived to a date, and we've had such a changeover in all the municipalities.
yeah, and that's
Just had an election.
kind of what we're driving it towards, is because of all the new mayors coming in, and everybody's got their new favorite pet project that their boss wants to get done, so bring the mayors, bring in city councils or whoever, town councils, and let them hear how the federal aid process works. We've had a lot of snafus lately, and so people are realizing that they didn't know this, or that's what they're saying, they didn't know this, and so I want to kind of help so that everybody's on the same page, and so everybody at least knows who to get a hold of if you have any questions.
And as you said, a lot of snafus. The staff here wants you to succeed. There's just more work in it if you're not succeeding, and we want to see accomplishment. But there's many, many rules to deal with that beyond our control. Charles will have to make your staff, your elected officials do it.
Right. Are you gonna send out a formal?
Yes.
invite to that? Okay.
Yes, it's going out yesterday.
No pressure. That's why I wasn't going to.
It's 8:30 a.m.
Thank you so much, Charles. I'm glad to see you. Yes, sir.
Piggybacking off of what Mitch said earlier, it just hit our social media. We'd love for you to spread it, but March 4th is the date that Cycle 219 is launching. I'm just going to pass out or offer up flyers and information on it.
Please.
Yeah, we've got stations planned for downtown, 2 locations, 3 in the Miller Beach area, University Park, and Cal College. The Metro Center station is already up, and I believe Marquette Park is going to be built this week.
And one more time, what's the date?
March 4th, that's when we're putting the bikes out, and probably 2 weeks before that, we're going to be offering memberships. We're going with a model similar to what Valpo does with a half-hour rentals and then annual passes, but we're also going to be offering discounts for riders, transit riders who already have 30-day bus pass. Basically, it's an extension to our bus system for first mile and last mile of the building. The bikes, they look great. They're airless, so you're not going to be dealing with flats. The locks are solar powered, GPS enabled. But we're excited. It's been taking us a couple of years to get this put together. And we're finally putting stations on the ground, and the bikes are being assembled. I think the last step are going to be assembled next Monday. And then we'll start getting word out.
Thank you so much. Great, thank you. Anything else? Good for the cause? If not, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. So moved.